give it a sec to see if anyone's in the waiting room, and then I think, Dennis, when you join, I'll make you a co-host so you can share your screen.
Yeah, actually, before we begin, the way we talked about it last month was that we would alternate, take turns each meeting.
The minutes say that I am.
Yes, so I think that we talked about alphabetical order by last
That's
name.
right.
Yeah, so Dennis will be our first
Okay,
one
now
up.
that I got that straightened out, we can start. So, well,
Next month would be Gene.
okay, great. And, yeah, thanks for coming. We'll get started. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. There's nobody online, so it'll be an efficient meeting. No public comment. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the first thing we need to do is approve the minutes from last month. Unless anybody has any questions about the minutes, do I have a motion to approve? Motion. Second. Second. Right. Minutes are approved.
You technically have to vote.
Oh, let's take a vote. Does everyone approve waiving minutes? All in favor? Aye. Right, it is unanimous. Great. And since there are no public comments, we can move right into the first item. So this is an old item that we're just going to maintain the continuity from the previous, core group that put together a draft, but it had never been approved by the committee and then presented to the borough manager and Michelle, who would be managing it, Michelle Carroll. So that's what we're going to start with. We can skip, the first part is just some background on what they're trying to do, make the facilities available. But what I wanted to do is jump into the second page and go over how this looks, because this is the form that the residents would use when they're reserving one of our resources. So we obviously want it to be user-friendly, easy for the office staff to manage as well. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Jim, to see if you had any thoughts on if this is, if there's any updates that you felt should have been made to this in the past, because it did get, put down to, it got pushed aside this past spring. So, any thoughts?
The only change it really has to do technically I kind of wrote it, so
Okay, and I didn't even know who wrote it, so great.
yeah,
That's
so
great.
I was going to say, the change of tennis school, there's so many great school, we're going to skate back. Other than that, but that's, pretty much, I think we did there, and then, the recurring event. And the one thing that was on the original one was, that the question was, are we going to let them rent it like after that? If someone wanted to rent the basketball courts at night or along those lines. And my personal opinion was, I think we go to dusk and that's it, unless it's a, a special event, something like that. But I just, that was just my personal opinion on that, so.
Well, that's a good point. The current use is the only group that I'm aware that uses it for events is the Summer League, right?
Correct.
And that's not even that late because of.
No, that's an organized league. That's for someone who wants us to use the facilities. Joe John and his 20 buddies want to come and rent the playground from 9 p.m. to 10:30.
Got it. And what time do the lights go off?
I think they go off, during the summer, they go off at 10. And I think generally, like, we're getting close to the time of year where we kind of switch on to go off at 9.
It's usually right about 9.
I'm just wondering if we should define time periods when you can rent things. I mean, if you want to rent the basketball courts during the morning on Saturday and Sunday, everybody just kind of shows up and plays, as far as I can tell. If somebody came in and said, hey, I got 10 buddies and we want to rent the courts Saturday morning for 2 hours, you want to limit that?
That was part of the problem that you're talking about, because then at that point there, you're no longer making it public property, the public park.
Yeah, I know that's just sorry for speaking out of turn here. I know council got a request over the summer to rent the skate park, and council just kind of had to figure out a one-off. While Parks and Rec goes through this process, and one of the conversations that council struggled with is how do we balance allowing people for private use versus denying the public that use of the facility during that time. So yeah, I think especially something like the basketball court, yeah, that's a balance, we'll have to figure out is how much do you want to allow private versus public use of the public's facilities.
That's something for a further discussion then, and this is just sort of trying to determine if the form we're using is a good form.
It's actually both. So we're tasked with developing a form that would then be utilized by the borough office and establishing a fee schedule, which is the accompanying document that appeared. But I wanted to go over the application first and see and have this discussion, because we have to determine which things are going to be included before we, of course, determine the fees. So how do you address the basketball court?
This is how I would address it.
Yeah.
Only one basketball court can do that. And I would tell people, I would say, listen, I would not let people rent the basketball court in the week, because I think that during the week, I say do. And then, hey, listen, and then really, or if you make the parameters early afternoon, I think that's fine. I think you really, early afternoon from like 2 p.m. 5 p.m. I think you're okay, but I won't allow one basketball court. So then there's always one available to the public.
How do you enforce someone renting that space?
Basically, they had a permit, and that's what it is. And then at that point, there, there's Samantha, and then we're going to have, there are permitted times here, and so someone has, and basically, hopefully, someone puts up a private event or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly how I envision it working is when someone rents a park facility, our public works staff would put signage up and ahead of the event that would say, hey, this is going to be rented by a private group from this time to this time.
So that would just
And the universal sign, maybe when you use the basketball court, is you put the cones in the basket. And
That's true.
I'm telling you, the basket's closed, and then someone's coming, and then that group can go ahead and take the cones out of the basket.
okay.
So limit to one court only and not on weekends.
Or like you said, weekend after weekend.
I would determine a time on a weekend afternoon, or I was going to say, 3 to 5, something like that. I mean, I think you see pretty much from 8 to 1, it's fairly consistent. People are over there utilizing.
Because once it gets to winter, you've only got 2 hours a day. So.
And somebody, I don't think people have to worry about renting the basketball courts in winter, but they may want to.
Yeah, sure.
I do think you want to keep them open as much as possible for the borough kids, if any of them want to go down there and play. I think you might get, you're talking $20 for using the courts. You can get 10 guys to say, hey man, we got a nice safe place to go play ball. Let's go all chip in. I mean, we played St. Margaret's on Friday nights, and we all throw in $5. You know, and it's not even required, but we do, and so everybody pays $5. So I just think, I'm not sure I'm that comfortable with renting out the basketball courts. I think that they seem to be a gathering spot for people that show up, and probably most of them aren't even from the borough, but it's a nice, pleasant place that people come to play, nice, safe place to play. I just wonder if you limit yourselves.
I would concur with Dennis, but if you're looking for a time, that's the times I would tell you. I'm not, if you're going to take a vote, would I rent the basketball courts? I ain't going to do that. But if you're going to rent the basketball courts, here's what we're going to do. Okay.
Just to clarify, we haven't done this before in terms of renting out basketball courts.
Correct. And
So it would be a new.
it would be new, but just everything else on the list would be new as well. All the other park resources.
Right.
But we have, pardon me, I beg your pardon. We have had people reserve things like somebody came and said, hey, listen, can I get the small baseball field? We're going to Sunday from 10 to 12, we're going to do a lateral family softball game. Well, they reserved the field, that's what they've done. And we haven't charged them anything. It's, we say, listen, okay, that's fine. People see them out there playing softball. And, and that's fine if they can. I mean, it hasn't been frequent, but we have done it previously.
Maybe it makes sense to have it only limited to like the weekly public leagues, and then have like a certain day or time slot that's open to the public. So it's not. So in general, it's open to the public for general use. But if there's like a rental time or a rental day, that people could rent it out if possible.
The one thing we don't have is information on, has it been requested? How often do people say, can I rent the basketball court for whether it's basketball or any other activity that requires a flat surface? So we're not, Chief, are you aware of any?
Yes, I do have a little bit of info on that. So other than league usage, in the time I worked for the borough, which isn't that long, but it's long enough where I feel like I can make a little bit of a statement about this. I've only gotten one request. It actually was very recently. Council approved someone filming a TV show pilot over on the court on like a Saturday night, like a month ago. But that's been the only request. It hasn't been anyone actually like, playing basketball or anything like that. And I think they're almost like two sort of situations we're trying to wrap our heads around. One is league usage, and the other is individual private party usage. And I think for individual usage, I think to be fair, I don't think there's the public has not been clamoring for the ability to rent the basketball courts.
So, yes.
So, probably between Jim and I, we probably have close to 70 years experience on those courts. And the only time I've seen sort of a conflict is when certain teams, maybe even league teams, come out and want to cut practice. Sure. But other than that, like, except for the leagues, it doesn't, I've never really seen someone trying to. Or like July 4th. Okay, so it's reserved for July 4th.
Yeah, but that's like a borough event.
Right, I know, I'm just saying, so I don't know that it's been a big issue. So,
Can I back us up a minute just because I'm so new? Is there a problem we're trying to solve with this?
No. As far as I'm aware, when it was discussed for the first time with me in the room this past spring, it's just a proactive approach to managing our resources. There wasn't a problem, which is good. So I don't see, what are everyone's thoughts on just not including the basketball court as an option to rent? But, many people like my niece had her birthday party at General Wayne Park, and we rented it through Lower Marion's site and paid a nominal fee, and that was great. We had a picnic area. Those are the types of uses that I think we're trying to proactively manage with this.
Yeah, now, I will say for my year and a half here, that is where the problem point really is in terms of demand for the pavilion, demand for the field area between the community center and the pavilion, and demand for the playground. Those are the places where people are pretty routinely calling the borough office asking, can I reserve this? And our response is, no, it's first come, first serve.
I think with the basketball courses, maybe I'm way wrong on this, but it's a creative problem almost in a way, because now people can just come and play. But if you find out, we've been trying to find a place to actually, those Narberth courts are $20 or $25, and we get it for that whole hour, for it all by ourselves. Let's do that, because that's peanuts. I mean, it's just a nominal fee, and then they get the courts, and you got other people showing up. I think if there is a problem when we start to see people want to be renting, then that's my view is I just see it as at least potentially creating more headaches when right now it's sort of an open forum. Anybody who wants to play can come and play, and I'm sure Jim can tell you more about how the jockeying goes on to get who's on what courts and when and how and all that stuff.
So it sounds like your comments and yours that just don't make that part of the rental program.
I think that's a great idea. I think if we know the main points and we focus on those, that might be more productive.
I think Samantha is right, really. The request we really always had was the picnic tables, the candy cane city, and hey, I'd like to be able to, especially the little small field area, and then occasionally, as I said, the small baseball. That's basically what everybody has to utilize. Really, actually, the one basketball for people who play the playground, they want the small hoops for the little kids. That was one. Hey, listen, I have a little party. Can we, convince them set in the small hoops? So.
I did like Jean's idea too, though, of giving texture, like the context around when we can rent it. So, because it would be tough on the weekend, right, if all these parks that could get empty. So if we did, if it was like one event a day for park, or, some like diagrams, right? So that way there's still public space open.
Definitely, and that's part of something we do need to establish is the rental period. That's great that all right, so we're all in agreement. We don't have to take a vote for that because we're just going through this point together.
We discussed Candy Cane City. I had a question about that.
Sure. Well, then, let's do that next because what do we got? We got areas of part of the question. So, Candy Cane City and picnic area.
So, are we opening that up? We're discussing opening that up for rental?
Correct.
The playground?
Everything you see on this sheet is something that we're going to discuss right now. The parameters for renting and if it even should be rented. So basketball, we're not going to require that. That would be an option to rent. And we'll move on to the next one. So, Whole Park, Candy Cane City. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had some thoughts on that, and maybe I'm just not understanding, but I feel like if that's rented out, it's really closing it off to the public. That's such a high traffic playground area for the community, and I wouldn't want to close it off for the one type of food. I feel like it's unfair.
I would agree, and also for the same part, for the basketball courts, right? Basketball courts are like the older, like adolescents or adults with the park is really for children.
Right, and parents on the whim, they just go to Candy Cane City just to take their kids there without looking at a schedule, without having to look it up. There.
Of course.
That's the perfect Saturday or Sunday morning. Oh my God, our kids are out in daycare today. I got to figure out something to do.
Yep. I've never experienced a park that requires a rental. Right. Park closed. You just Google closest park to me.
Right.
The other hack is when we travel is where the local elementary school is. Because they will have a playground. And many are not closed to the public, many just don't have any signs, so you just don't play. But that's a little hack that we started doing years ago, been trying.
But then in the pavilion, it seems like the one that's.
It's a pavilion depicting tables.
Yeah, it's a billion bigger tables, okay.
That's really the other, and then really the other one is the little field area, but really honestly, because that's the high traffic area, when in between the two buildings, that's why we really never really looked to kind of really do that little field area, you know, in between it, because everybody walks through, so, you know, you can't really carve that off.
What is that area on here? Is that? I see the Jason
That's the
Pavilion.
blank part of the page.
That's it, I was gonna say, and that's, I'll be honest with you, that's why I didn't put it on.
Right, gotcha. It needs a name.
So,
Jim McNulty.
McNulty.
Yeah.
Well, not Memorial, but just know what it is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
so as we go through this Lender Park / area, whole park, no, because that would include the basketball courts. Cross off Candy, Cane City, and just circle picnic area to leave.
Actually, I will comment on that as well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. So that whole picnic, I think there's 2 picnic tables there.
Correct.
So that would be open for rental.
It would be open for rental.
I think if we did that, we just have to make sure there's at least some seating like, available to the public. Ideally, there would be at least another picnic table that was available.
Do you mean only rent out one at a time, or get a third table?
Maybe get a third table if we're thinking about renting it out.
I think I'd be open to the other borough getting more picnic tables if I do think we should allow some of those for rental, but I also agree that probably some of them should be available to the public at all times. And getting a couple more picnic tables is not that big of a deal.
But I mean, it's also the case that someone who's renting could rent some full.
Of course. So would we, with this, want to recommend the purchase of 2 picnic tables to be put, let's say, along the wall of the library in that brick?
Not talking that much money.
Okay. Great idea. And then, obviously, the Tyson Pavilion, that would need to, that would be a benefit to have the ability to rent that out. Athletic fields, youth baseball field, adult baseball field. Now, parking lots on there. Since our lot is the lot behind us is shared for municipal workers, case in point, so how could we restrict, or would we want to restrict that?
Yeah, rent.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but on Sabine, if you all weren't aware, the borough is proposing a permanent parking plan because we have a lot of squatters in Sabine, vehicle squatters.
You don't think we have them over here?
Actually, you may be pleased to see, we had a party out there today as the police towed away the JFS trailer.
I'm not saying a word. Samantha, you and I discussed this before, so I'm not going to go ahead and go down that road.
Fair enough, fair enough,
But
You know my feeling on that.
fair enough. But we have been working to clean up.
No, absolutely. It's funny you said that because I actually made that comment today. I said we're missing something there.
But there are the squatters that you.
Okay, so Sabine parking lot, which is used by the tenants of Sabine as well as the largest tenant being Wonder Spring. And then you also get some people that work on Montgomery that'll walk over. So you will see it fills up sometimes more than half full during the day, like social Monday, so I know that. But I also do go to Sabine sometimes with the kids. And in the corner, back left corner, is vehicles that have been there a very long time.
There's a boat,
There's a camper,
yeah, there's a
there's
shed.
work trucks, and there's people's supplies in the corner. So,
I've seen them as a.
so the borough is looking to, it was just a quick aside to say that the borough is looking for ways to, generate revenue as they should in that space and also, deter people from just squatting. But that parking lot is an unused resource that, it was one of the things that I think is, we could really, regardless of the future of Sabine, it's a great lot that somebody could rent out for an event on the weekends. For example, Escape the Boundaries, before we had this, has done events as Chinos and everyone probably is aware. They did events in that parking lot, but it's not a good parking lot for skateboarding anymore. It's just super phony. Point is, I think that renting out the lot is a lot. It could be great. Say that somebody wants to have a food truck festival.
Right. So you think like a weekend rental?
Yeah, we can, or even an evening rental. So Wonder Spring closes at 6. That's when you have to pick up your kids.
Right.
And any business, I don't know the hours of the business is there, but chances are the lot's pretty empty after 6. But in the nice weather, we could have, till 6 to 8 you could rent. It's just pulling that out of the air. But yeah, I think Sabine should definitely consider that.
What are the hours? Is there a gym there?
No, not anymore.
Oh, they
Yeah.
So thoughts on renting the Sabine lot?
I really like the idea of moving it up to multiple uses and just maximizing that unused space.
Yeah.
I do think we have to think about whether we're going to allow for-profit versus non-profit, whether it would be like open to the public events or private events. I think we have to think that through a little bit.
For the Sabine lot.
Yes.
Thoughts on,
Well, rent it out, I'm not sure what the difference would be between the private and non-profit.
It's actually, I can throw a ball in here. So like with the big meeting room tier, for example, the borough does distinguish between those for rentals of big room tier. For example, if you're a private event, you pay $100 to rent that space. However, if you're either a nonprofit and or the event you're doing is open to the public, then the fee is waived. So maybe that's something to consider with the Sabine lot is, if you're doing a private event, you're a for-profit entity, you pay whatever the fee is, and maybe you pay less of a fee or no fee if you're either a nonprofit and or your event's open to the public.
That's a level of consistency that you want to have. If you're doing it here, my only thing then is I'll go to him because of liability. If I'm having a private event outside, should I have my own liability insurance?
So the borough requires, whether you pay a fee or not,
Certificate of.
yeah, the borough requires everyone using that room, no matter what, to provide a certificate of insurance.
That's it. I know that was my.
Oh, sorry, it was a rhetorical question.
Yeah, because that's my point. I know because whenever we use that, we've always done that. So that's my point there. I was deferring to.
That's a good point. How difficult is that to get? So if you were trying to have an event there, is that a difficult thing to work here? It's not that hard.
And do you have already like an existing document about the cleanup responsibilities at the end?
Yeah, so I mean, if you wanted to, I don't know if you did already or not, those rules and regulations, but if you want to basically, provide consistency between what we do with 100 Conway, with anything you're doing in the parks, copying and pasting any of that language should be fine.
Just like you said, food trucks, I'm thinking like, dumping grease.
Well,
that would be illegal, but.
But you get my point.
There would be food wrappers or something.
You can mess it up quite a bit more than you could.
Yeah.
I do think there needs to be a liability clause in there. I don't know if, not on there, but
Yeah.
for any damages that.
Yeah, I think that
That is on, it's on page, the second page.
Like, cool, we didn't think of that.
Yep, we would just, formatting, try to condense this to one page for ease of use, but, so that's great, Sabine lot. So as far as hours, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's, obviously Monday through Friday, you can't rent it during the day, businesses are in use, but 6 to 8. I mean, in the summer, you can do 6 to 9, but we could write, daylight savings, right?
So what kind of lighting do they have over there? I forget now.
So we actually recently put in new LEDs over there.
That's what I thought.
I'll admit though, it's been quite a while since I've been there when it's been dark with how late it's been when it gets dark.
But it's more parking lights than
Yeah.
floodlights, so that's what I'd say, yeah. So then it would be, my suggestion then would be, till dark. So the dusk or whatever you want to call it. I mean, like 6 to 8 is, I think that's a fine number when you can start at. And in the summer, you can go obviously, so, from May to September, June to 6 to 9, all the times 6 to 8.
Yeah, you don't want to go past dark, also just with lights, because.
No, that's
Again, how residential.
I mean, it's gonna be dark at 6 o'clock by November.
Oh, well, that's why I said, exactly. I mean, so that's, you have to figure out, but then.
If you got a parking lot that isn't that, it's not good enough to skateboard on.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're
don't want people
having a
walking.
beer and a couple of tacos,
Right.
So
might not be that easy to walk on either,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So we would just do it spring, summers, for the evenings, just to keep it consistent. And who's going to want to do an event at 6? Who's going to do a night event during the winter there anyway?
No, yeah, it's September 30 close down.
Yeah, so spring, summer, early fall, yeah. Okay.
And but with the time sleep, would it be
You know what?
day as well?
It was one of the campaign talking points, was like, when I do events and say by the park, quick aside, I'd be like, just think of what we could do with this park. We could have an Oktoberfest, we could do some food truck festival. Anyway,
Sorry, Matthias, there's a
Are
question.
you talking about running it during the day as well on the weekend?
yeah, so I meant during the Monday through Friday, just after work hours, but that'd only be, seasonal based on daylight savings.
Right.
But on the weekends, why not?
Right.
So that would be when most events would typically happen. So quiet hours, working hours are what, 7 o'clock in this boroughs or 7:30?
7.
So we could start at 7 and you go till dusk
Is there construction near your house? It's definitely.
all the time.
There's no construction.
But yeah, so 7 to
Dusk.
7 a.m. to dusk.
Can I just go back quickly to the park areas? How do you feel about the tennis courts, the athletic field, the youth baseball field, the adult baseball fields, the full field? Are those areas of,
Yeah, and you can pick up where I miss, swing and a miss, but we have leagues that already utilize it, consistently, but there are going to be other organizations that are going to want to use it. And so it's really for the benefit of the core users, the people like, Narberth baseball and et cetera. So have we run into conflicts in the past where groups would just start utilizing it without reserving it or giving the courtesy call to the borough?
We've run into 2 issues over the years, and I'm not faulting anybody. Lower Merion seems to close their fields down very quickly, so they know that Narberth, and we've done a better job over the years. We use the common sense approach. It's raining, we're not going to go on our field. But, okay, nobody's there, so I'm going to think, we can't practice over at Hendon Park, so we're going to come over to Narberth and bring our team over there. And, or the field's wet, so that was the only time, and, literally, I think we've done a decent job of just kind of policing and saying, we were lucky in the past to say, hey, guys, it's pretty wet out here. Do you really think you can practice some baseball on the field here? And really, you're not just kids. It's an organized event. I mean, that's real. And as I said, it's usually because, obviously Lower Merion is right next door, and that's what it was. And it's, also because we have the batting cage, and it's like, oh, we'll use their batting cage. That's the only, and we had one issue with like a soccer team that came down once, but they only came down once, and that was actually, and they toured the field decent because they all had cleats on. But, you know, other than that, no, I think we're usually pretty good that way, to be honest with you. Yeah. So, I mean, I was going to say, you know, usually the events that we ever are requested to, a group of Lower and high school kids wanted to have the field once for a ultimate frisbee fundraiser. So, and we gave that to them on like a Saturday afternoon from 1 to 4. And so it made sure there was no conflict with any of the leagues and commitments that we already had to the little kids and the kids there. And that's what we do. And then they went on the schedule. Like, hey, it's just, hey, we know that. We did that with youth rugby. They had one time a year, they have a rugby scrum of about 6 teams that come down.
When you say someone must maintain the schedule.
Yeah, well, the rec board did it, and then through Margaret AA, and then actually Greg Knox was the one who actually did it. He submitted to the borough. Because he
I think it's great, but
because we was not.
Yeah, no, it's been a huge help to the borough.
I was going to say 90% of the 99% of events are not AA league events. That's what they are. They're from little kid soccer to adult baseball. So I mean, so that's really what.
but it's been the practice. I just wonder if we have to codify that, or we should just do it.
Well, I think it's just organizing it, you know, the groups that are currently using it on a regular basis would just reserve it. They don't, you know, at the beginning of the year, they could do it recurring, you know, just schedule it the whole year, right?
Exactly. So again, if we want to build off the model the borough already has for like the use of 100 Conway or the use of 80 Windsor, the way it works is, again, we'll stick with 100 Conway. It's a cleaner example. You can pay $100 to rent the space if you're a one-off person. But for example, New Horizons Senior Center has a recurring user agreement with the borough that governs their usage. And so I talked a long time ago with the NAA board about doing a recurring user agreement for the fields, and it's just with everything I've been busy with, I haven't come back to it. That's what I would envision, doing a recurring user agreement with girls basketball, boys basketball, NAA, I guess maybe St. Barbara's as well. And that would cover probably, 99% of people who are organizing things at the park.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to say, you know, we want to give priority if those venues and leave them out hanging. I guess if they drop their usage, then, you know, their time can go elsewhere. It seems to me that once you've been using it so far, when there's a community, we want to keep that going.
And that's why, and that's when, until so someone wanted to use the field, that's they have the schedule and they say, here's the availability. Boom, boom, boom. But that's what it does. And it's worked out very well, to be honest with you. They the Northwest Monday, they have the field. They don't do scheduling events until that event, their event's over. They have the field there. So.
Yeah, and so like the point that I think Jane raised earlier, like something like the Arbor Front, the way that would work is that would be a time where someone would need to fill this form out. They would mark whole field, but like, you know, we wouldn't, I mean, unless you all feel strongly about this, I would think that I would not want to charge a fee to Arbor Front, you know, for use of the field because it's a public event, they're a nonprofit and all that kind of thing. But on the form, I still would want, you know, the option for someone to mark whole park or whole field, you know, just we know that's something that happens. And there are other groups that have asked for similar stuff. But again, usually special event related stuff like the Easter egg hunt, trying to think what else is the Halloween parade, things like that, 4th of July. So just so everyone knows and make sure everyone here and anyone who watches this recording later possibly knows, the borough doesn't actually do those events. And I'm very grateful to the nonprofits who do them and that we're able to provide those resources. But I think having this form would be a huge help for those situations.
I guess my only concern, because those are kind of one-off situations, right, where typically associations that do this on a recurring basis. I mean, I hate to suggest two forms, but are we opening ourselves up to a lot of rental if we put this out there?
That's a good,
You know what I mean?
yeah, because then someone will be like, oh yeah, this is a choice.
Right, like, oh, I can rent the whole field, right, for $100 on like a Saturday. So I'm just like, do we need to make this separate stipulation or form for those type of events that don't necessarily?
We actually, there was one thing that basically said something, there should have been something that said about nonprofit. When you're a nonprofit, maybe it wasn't included here.
Well, maybe what we would do is we would still have this form, we would take field off of it possibly if we don't want to make that a rental option. And honestly, what I would do is I would just tell those folks, fill this form out and just handwrite in.
Right,
Yeah.
or, you know, so, and I'm thinking we restrict it to the Tyson Pavilion, the picnic area, the Save by Lot, right? I mean, are there other areas that are, you said that, the Gyps Field, I don't know what we call that. I think we need signage. We need 2 new picnic tables and a sign that says Gyps Field.
How about political stuff? Somebody wants to rent a whole field for a political rally, is that something you want to?
So that, oh boy, yeah, that's a good question because it's something that could happen. And I know actually in the past when, you know, major events have happened in the world, people have wanted to do things at the park. So I've been trying to talk through with the borough's finance and administration committee a special event permit. And I want it to be, what's the word I'm looking for here? I want it to sync up well with whatever we come up with for the parks. Because if someone's doing a special event, there are all sorts of borough resources that then have to be involved. Like the police need to know. Like if NAA has a ballgame on, police, like no one, you know, the borough doesn't really need to be involved in that. If someone's renting the pavilion for a birthday party, the borough is not getting involved in that. But if someone is having a political rally at the park, absolutely the borough is going to need to put some, have some oversight over that. So I think for this purpose, I think this rental is more for like private events or like events that actually, maybe to make it simple, I would say actually the purpose of this one is for private events. And if you're doing a public event, then you need to do this special event permit from the borough, which is a separate sort of deal. Does that make sense to everyone here? So I'm kind of like talking and thinking at the same time.
There's also like the nonprofit organizations that might want to rent out the pavilion, like the Girl Scouts or whatever. So maybe the fee will be raised for them, but I think we need to provide for that. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then
That might be something I do. That was a really good question, Dennis, and that might be something where I might
answer for you.
think, that might be something I have to think about and talk with a couple borough staff folks about. Maybe next month we can circle back to that question.
Just, you know, that's, it's just envision, this is great.
Right.
No, yeah.
Once we get this field, we're gonna have that good old Second Amendment rally there, you know?
Right, or even, I know before my time, I was told like when everything with George Floyd happened, there was some sort of, event at the park here. I know after the, Roe v. Wade decision, someone reached out to the borough office about not using the park, but using borough-owned property for a rally around that. So you're right, it is a thing that happens, and it's a thing the borough has to figure out, not just for the park, but for other property owners as well, like the station, town square area, the buildings here, state line, all that sort of stuff.
So it sounds like we all agree that this would be for private events and public.
And for very limited sort of like the Girl Scouts or something like that.
And the nonprofits like that run, the annual run. And then if we look stay on this page, but while we're staying on this page, look at the next handout, which is below it, below this packet. Not in, yeah, below this packet is a fee schedule that was drafted. So it says Norwood parking policy permit, athletic field, basketball courts, gazebo. All right. So this has some recommended fees on there. And what's nice is we can remove the basketball and tennis court paragraph. So that makes it easier. But it has athletic fields on there for per game, seasonal, an individual, and some guidance.
If I may real quick, just on the seasonal part, again, now that I'm kind of talking through this, I would actually like to ask to consider we take that off, because if someone is doing seasonal, again, that feels to be more like a recurring user agreement situation and not like a park rental form situation.
So but as far as the cost goes, what are they currently paying for seasonal?
So right now, the way it works between the borough and the NAA, and I want to formalize this a little bit more of the recurring user agreement, is the NAA from time to time makes infrastructure improvements in the park to help offset some of the borough's costs, as well as provide some limited maintenance support, that kind of thing. And I think that, just formalizing that situation a little bit more in a recurring user agreement, I think was, something that, I can talk about the
The draft that we just reviewed has single use, seasonal use, and yearly use on it. So pretty soon we would need to have scrap the seasonal and yearly use off of this and make this a single use form.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, yeah.
Okay, because there already is a recurring use form, so why reinvent the wheel? Okay.
And sorry, my kind of like understanding of the borough, obviously, like this form was, originally made almost a year ago. Obviously, I've learned a lot since then about how things work and situations we run into in the borough.
Okay. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Then, as far as the single use of the park, it's got the cost here for athletic fields and gazebos, and that's really all we have to address as far as costs that will associate with them. Does anyone have any thoughts on what's listed there that's good, bad, or indifferent? One athletic game, $20, resident, $35, non-resident. Doesn't seem like a significant fee.
That's irrespective of the return.
Correct. We just pivoted to single use. So.
So struggling with the renting of the fields.
Okay.
Am I the only one that? And I could easily.
I'll say it's, if we want to narrow the scope of this just to basically pavilion rental for now, like that will not break my heart. Because almost all the requests I get for park rental are the pavilion.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, that's what I'm saying. Just trying to say.
As a practical matter, I don't think it's a lot of the time. It's anyway.
I mean, they're one-off requests, that's what they really are. So, I mean, that's the one, that's what I can tell you.
And maybe if we ever get a request, I'm making something up here. If someone's like, they want to do a charity kickball tournament or something, like maybe the committee on a one-off basis would consider and figure out those situations.
That's pretty much what it's been. I mean, years ago, the guy had the basketball, 24 hours of basketball, and he did that, and he did that, and then they had a day-long softball game. I mean, it was, and when we found a day when it was available, and that's what it was. It's like We can give you these 3 days. We can give you Sunday the 15th. Did any of those days work for you? And then, because that's what works for us. Okay, we never charge anything. We just say, hey, if you're doing a charity event, that's great. Because that it shows proof of insurance and I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm just more concerned if someone, again, we start a new process and someone says, oh, well, you can rent the field, right? That then we really restrict our open spaces in our road, which I think becomes a problem. And so I think I hate to keep bringing us back here and, but I think we have to think about the downstream impact. So if we're starting a new process, again, like if I was looking at this, like, oh my gosh, we can get the whole field for, a few hours on Saturday, I just worry about what that would take to.
But I would think in terms of the field, we're coming at a point where we have a little bit of room to try to figure out some of what we're talking about, because I don't know that there'd be a lot of folks this, now mid-September, we're going to start wanting to rent the field. We got October, November, December, and skating parties right there.
Yes, you do.
So, well, maybe.
You need the pavilion, you need that's your.
And I actually think, I really like Dennis's thoughts about the Save On parking lot as well. So maybe we stick with what we talked about, the pavilion, the picnic tables. We stick with the Save On parking lot and the skate park. This council already kind of came up with something for that while Parks and Rec was doing reorg. And then, the fields, if and when there's a problem, then we can figure it out.
I mean, that would be great. That's
wonderful. Now, as far as the cost, there on this single page draft of fees, there was no cost for the picnic table. So the gazebo and the picnic table, is everyone okay with using the same 3-hour cost for the picnic table and the gazebo?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, it seems fair. Okay, great. So then, as far as the next step on this, what we won't be voting because this isn't in its final form, but what I am meeting with Michelle Carroll next week, and to go over this, to say this is what we came up with, and is this, do you have any concerns about like implementing this? Is this okay? Get her, approval. Then in October, we have the final draft and we just vote on it and that'll take 30 seconds. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so I make a motion that we will vote on the.
Oh, you don't have to make.
Oh, we don't. Okay, great.
You're on it.
All right, so that's done. Yeah.
And just so everyone here knows, since we do some new folks, Michelle Carroll is my assistant, and she's the borough staff person, primarily responsible for kind of like the park events. Thank you.
That's basically what you just said. Basically saying this.
The next item is, it's a big deal because it's an opportunity for us to really set the course on the future of our park. So it's Parks and Rec completing the master park plan versus forming a new committee. And the accompanying document that we're going to review while we discuss this is it's dated May 25th, 2022, purpose of ad hoc master plan committee. So this sheet is the guidelines that council put in place this past spring that they'd like to see for a master park plan committee, but we now have the opportunity to see, to discuss as a committee if we want to take that on versus having a separate committee be formed. So I'd like to go around the room and get each person's thoughts, because we all joined this committee for different reasons, but the one reason we have in common is to, for the betterment of our parks and recreation options in our town. So I'll start on this side.
Can I ask you a question for people? Is this, because I tried to look at the council member minutes and I couldn't determine if this was like an order from the council or is this
I saw something in somewhere that there was mention made that the borough manager had come up with a plan. So I wanted to kind of know
Yeah,
where this
sure.
came from.
Yeah, so, so with the, Parks and Rec Committee, back in the spring, again, we were in a situation where we were kind of in flux and, the master park plan is an important project to Borough Council. So this idea of forming a ad hoc committee came up. Council at their May business meeting, I want to say it was like May 18th or something like that. And those minutes that I think you're referencing ultimately said, I had a kind of a draft of something in that packet, but it wasn't that. And council kind of asked me to refine that. So that May 25th date, that's actually the date that the infrastructure committee met. And that was presented to the infrastructure committee. And at that meeting on May 25th, we talked that through, and they were kind of in favor of moving forward with that.
So I wondered if the council had already made a decision. Hey, it's going to be an ad hoc committee. So that's
Yeah, but let me just give you some context about the thing. The issue is, do you have enough time to do this and all the other things you have to do? Or is it better to have a separate group that can focus on this master park plan, allowing the main committee to do its other things? And in my view, it's up. I mean, you and the folks will be doing the work, so your opinion about that matters.
and that's the first thing I saw. The anticipation is meeting of 1 to 2 times per month, which seems quite logical given the scope of the task. I have the time to be able to do that. I don't know if everybody else does. So not much I can say. Jim's laughing about something.
Samantha doesn't want to let him, so I'm not even going to say it. So I'm going to get it really out.
Well, I think this is for us to discuss. We're all starting fresh, basically. So, what are your thoughts on taking this on versus a committee being formed?
Having just looked at this right now, so the job that I'm in is a lot. And so I would be worried about the commitment to that 2 times a month. I would love to be able to help form ideas or help to work, but I think I would struggle with that time commitment to do it well.
I mean, I'd be really interested in doing some work with, if there was a committee. And so I do think I do have the time available. I also just want to make sure we have, I don't know if it was this board working on the project, on the master plan. I want to make sure that we have representation from certain stakeholders in the community as well. So I think that would be possible.
As the council lays out the ad hoc committee, it would include other stakeholders. But if we were to take it on, it would be on us to engage them. Yes.
And your message back to council could be that we support the ad hoc committee, but we want you to change the membership. We recommend you change the membership to X numbers of Parks and Rec or any other stakeholders that you think would make sense for it.
That strikes me as a great point. Because I don't think you can really come up with a common. We can all say these are great. This is what we want for parks, but we do it without the involvement of our NAA and council members to be able to. You got to work in budget type issues when you're making some of these discussions, because it doesn't make, to me, a lot of sense to come up with 3 of the greatest parks in the world, but then, well, you can't finance them. What are we going to do? You don't want to spend, and I've seen projects like this, and I haven't been involved. I haven't put in the time the council members have. I've seen where projects of different ideas
come into play. The people in the borough are given enough notice, and I'll say, hey, I didn't do anything about it either. And it's not until council's just about 90% done, and they said, hey, now this is what we're going to do. And everybody goes, oh my God, look what they're going to do. You can't. And that is what you wouldn't want to have happen, where whoever's on this committee is going to spend a year and a half or a year to put something together, and then they get blow up at the last minute. You want everybody to know what's going on and have a chance to have to say. So I like the idea of the ad hoc committee. I think at least that's roughly there. I think a couple of folks from Parks and Rec makes some sense.
As the person who was on the last 5 of these, where we've done this, and I'm not gonna, no other comment necessary. Remember, this is an advisory board. That's what we are. I believe Samantha's idea that I think the ad hoc committee is a great way of doing it. I do believe there should be more than one Parks and Rec person on there, because I think the scope of what we attempt to go ahead and accomplish, not only for the park, but for the community's sake, is there. And I like the fact that the Margaret Bay board and the Shade Tree, then everyone has a say, at least, because what's happened in the past is they've asked the rec board to develop a plan. The plan is, and listen, and when the rec board agreed, disagreed, and came up with something, but it didn't meet all the needs of other users. So now it's like, okay, now we have to go bring, and then it came back that we did a plan, spent a lot of time on it, and okay, well, that's great. And literally we had rolled up files, and they were over there in the corner over there, and the plan basically had been blown up, and then the guy came to presentation. Here's what you came up with. It's like, wasn't what we came up with. So I believe what Samantha had said in conjunction with what was written here as far as the ad hoc committee. My personal opinion would be that would be the most prudent way of going. And I think you're able to, if we have 2-3 representatives, I think the Parks and Rec board could be represented in its entirety that way, because whether Dennis believes in A, B, and C, and Dennis C believes in C, D, and E, at that point there, as a group, I think we'll be able to raise those issues as part of that ad hoc committee.
It's a part of the responsibility of the people from this group that joined the ad hoc group would be, as you say, to come back to the main group and consult and confirm the consensus. But I mean, if you want to, if there are 3 or 4 people who are interested for Parks and Rec and can devote the time, go for it. But we were just nervous that people might have. When they signed up for Parks and Rec, they didn't sign up for this.
And then all of a sudden, here, you need to become a project manager.
And I also, again, I've lived in Margaret County 18 years. This is the first time I'm joining a committee. I think there's still a lot of people like me out there that don't even understand what some of the concerns are. But I see when say like park all over, I'm not even sure I know what those. And so I think part of it is also making sure that these that we can socialize this in life, right? That people understand that we understand what those concerns are. I understand there's a survey that at one point that asked people
over was say that.
Right,
Yeah.
So it's complicated.
But now we're going to tell folks up to say about we're going to have a food truck.
Right, exactly. They're not like, do whatever you want, right?
But I mean, I think part of the challenge that this ad hoc committee faces, we hit that, which is that you've got to get a sense of what Norbert wants, right? Not just like a vocal group that is organized, because there's more opinions than just that.
So as Dennis C and as Young so I did go through doing a master power plan in my last job, And yeah, I mean, it involved holding town halls, it involved doing surveys, it involved an ad hoc committee comprised of representatives from various stakeholders in the borough. And it took meeting once or twice a month for about 12 months. But there was a plan that then for council approved, and now New Britain's on its way to actually implementing that plan. So I am hopeful that the sixth time is the charm, and that by doing it this way, we'll get to a place where we can get a plan done and really make some quality investment in the parks.
I mean, without, putting too fine a point on it, we didn't have cement.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry, you know what?
That's America. Here, we're gonna get this to you. You sound like a bad
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
You gotta run?
I'll be right back.
Okay. Time where my goal is to be done by 9, and I think we'll get there. So
So maybe if I may, Dennis, to move this forward, it sounds like we need to see it. It sounds like maybe there's some interest from Gene and maybe from Dennis B. For being on staff op committee. I wasn't sure if you're interested in being on it as well. And maybe we could chat with Carolyn and Chris offline and see if they would be interested in it. And then I can then go to council and say that, if there's any other stakeholders we want to add to the group or not, then I can go to council and say, Parks and Rec recommend you form this committee with these people on it.
thank you. Yes, I would like to be on that committee. And what is the process for asking Chris and Carol? Just simply email them after.
Yeah, because you won't have a forum, that would be fine. If you just individually email the two of them and ask them, hey, we talked tonight about who all is interested in working on the master park plan, or let me know if you're interested or not.
Yes, this was in the meeting material, so I will say yes. If you got a chance to read this, if not, please review and then get back to me. Yeah, good. I'll remind them of that.
And there's, one other component to this that hasn't been resolved yet, which is that even doing the planning for this is going to cost money.
Exactly.
And that hasn't been budgeted yet, but we're in budget season.
And that's what brings us to number 6. Thank you, Ira, for teeing us up. No, that's great. You've got ESP, you've got ESP. So we, Samantha brought to my attention that DCNR is a funding vehicle that could be utilized. A master park plan, the actual plan, not not swing sets and basketball hoops, but the plan itself, which is why I had this printed up. We'll talk about that in a second. There's a funding option that we could apply for. No guarantees, but it would be due October 27th, correct, Samantha?
Oh, that's right.
And what would the submission require of us? How would this work? This is all something new for each of us.
Yeah, so, to the one point you made, a little secret about these grants is that if you get funded from the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, DCNR, or a planning grant, if you then later on apply for an actual implementation or construction grant, you're a lot more competitive because their thought process is like, well, we already put money into helping them plan this, so we really kind of want to see this thing through. So it makes you more competitive and get money to actually then build whatever your plan has in it. So this is a great grant opportunity in that usually the match on this is a 50-50. This one, the borough would only have to contribute 20% of the cost and the state would pay 80% if we got it. This is actually a unique opportunity. Usually their grants are in April and usually they're 50-50. They're using a share of the federal COVID money that the state got to pay to provide these grants. So really what I would just want is the green light from this committee to start working on it. And then what I could do is, for your October meeting, I could prepare a draft of that grant application for you to take a look at, make any final tweaks to it, have Borough Council look at it at their business meeting, and then submit it by the 27th. And then we would probably know relatively early next year, January, February, of that, if we got it or not.
And then is that the cart before the horse? Or, I mean, sorry, is that the horse like that? Then you can set the cart of, okay, now we know what, like, we've never done this before. So like, is it going to be enough for a plan, right? Like,
So the one good thing, I'll admit, I was overall very disappointed from the presentation that you and Jim got to see earlier this year for HRG. But the one good thing we did get from that is cost on what it will cost to do a master park plan.
Yeah.
And I also know what it cost to do one 2 years ago in Britain. So I do feel pretty confident that I know about how much grant money we need to ask for. So I feel pretty good that we got the grant. It would be the right amount.
And what is the process?
Generally, a master park plan runs between $70,000 and $80,000, given the amount of public feedback and stakeholders and preparation.
But I mean, the timing issue is like, do you try to like start before you get the grant? And sometimes that's not a great idea because the professional you hire wants to begin from the beginning. So there's some legwork you can do, but you have to think carefully about whether you want to start before you get the grant.
I think we probably, that's true. And yeah, with these grants, they won't retroactively pay for something if you start doing something before you get the money. So, I mean, I don't know. I would see, even after we submit this grant, we still have to get the members of the ad hoc committee figured out. They have to organize. There'll be a little bit of a wait, but I don't think it'll be too bad. The timing of this
There's some things they could do. They just can't go.
Exactly. Can't spend any money until and that group will need to evaluate proposals for professional support, stuff like that. So,
Now, I think the folks on the committee would have a chance to look at the past 5 things that Jim has discussed, so that at least we have some kind of a head start, and then also reach out to the other stakeholders that would be on that committee so that they can sort of get on board with it. I think that's great to be on top of it. I'm curious, because I did look up real quickly when I got this. Okay, I said, Narberth must be pushing 5,000. How close are we to the?
oh yeah, the 20% limit.
Yeah.
It's communities under 5,000 people that only have to contribute a 20%.
We're 4,300.
We're well under it.
Yeah.
Even with the L.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering with the new
2020
buildings.
census, we're at it's based on the census. So 2020 census, we're at a little over 4,500.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
See,
They're not going to go around and count heads.
That's okay. I just was curious.
So what you missed was that we were coming to an agreement that.
You assumed I missed it.
Oh, you heard it? Okay.
I mean, I had my phone. I can't see.
Good for you. Well, I wanted to bring you up to speed, but
Go ahead.
we're at the point where we can all just, that we need to make a motion to allow Samantha to submit, and then we would review the application next month. So do we even need to make a motion to do that?
No,
Okay.
I'll get started on it, and then at your meeting next month, we'll have a draft to take a look at.
I think that's great opportunity.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to learn how that works.
It's a talent, right? It's a special skill set. So.
Yes.
And the organized annual park users meeting, and Jim and Samantha jump in to correct me where I'm wrong, but that's something they do to make sure that we're taking into account the needs of the community organizations that utilize our parks. But it also, right?
Honestly, Jim would know better.
Okay. So is that the spirit of what that is? And when have you typically done it?
It's typically been done early spring because that includes the basketball users and usually the field users. What they and Samantha, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the buildings are no longer part of the Parks and Rec, so we don't have to, like I said, the American Legion and the Girl Scouts don't have to give a 3-hour tour of discussion. Their great works. And that's basically, and typically what it is, it's been the basketball, Marseille, St. Margaret's, and 4th of July, the 4th of July committee, the Narberth run, and then the 4th of July committee was on, did the Halloween parade over that. Then, and maybe Nuts would also, because I guess because they used to store stuff in the little house.
Yeah.
Their tools.
The old ones.
Great, so that's something we would organize for March.
So this is not open to the public, it's just for the.
It's a field users meeting, recurrent users that I've always used it before. So.
And it's more about this part, not other.
Correct. It's this part. Now the question is, if you have a recurring user of Sabine, you probably should include them.
So do you do it in conjunction with the regular scheduled meeting, or do you have a separate meeting?
Typically we do it before a meeting, because it's basically they just come and represent themselves. Here's who we are. Here's what we use, and here's the time frame that we use. In August girls basketball, we used they used to call it the hot dog house, whatever you want to call that house there. I was going to say our season runs May 1st to July 4th, or whatever it is. We use, they use the one basketball court. The boys use the other basketball court, and then, but they can use both if need be. They store their scoreboard in the hot dog house, and then in the off season they were using the little trailer they had, and for some years they stored it in the garage there. But that's typically what it is. And then whoever meeting there are. So it's just basically really what it is. It's an affirmation. It was an affirmation that you're going to use it again. To be honest with you, you could probably just do it. I mean, I shouldn't say this, and then Samantha, would it be okay if they did it online? And just didn't say, hey, guys, we're gonna have a Zoom meeting. Are you gonna do it, or can you send out the email? Hey, it's a courtesy email. You need to go ahead and please. It was the opportunity for them to also make comments that, hey, here's some improvements that we would like to see if possible. I know one year they said one of the stands is broken, and could we get another set of stands, because the one that always tipped. Yeah. Along that, I mean, that's pretty much what it was. Norbert, they would say, hey, we use the scoreboard, we use the right house of that right here, the hot dog house to store equipment for these months, and use the baseball field from March 15th to pretty much August 15th.
It's basically a coordination meeting between the users.
And it's done before, like you do it like 7 to 7:30, and then you jump into your meeting. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, you can do it either way. I mean, it's been done both ways. A meeting just by itself, and typically it was because the recurrence of rec board meeting schedule has varied over the years, from quarterly to bi-monthly to monthly to whatever. So that's what it was. But the last one, when you have a monthly meeting, this is what because the group is here, it makes the most sense. And of course, because we have a public meeting, they're more than welcome to stay for the meeting too.
Thank you. That's a huge help. Well, and that's something we could make part of the agenda for October and November and get it organized. So then on to the 2023 budget, which, last year the Parks and Rec Committee was successful in getting additional funding after being at the same, amount for several years. So we have an opportunity to submit a request to the borough. I sent out the budget. We've had 20,000 for the past, up until last year, and last year we got an additional 5.
We got actually 10.
We got 10, that's right, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't have the spreadsheet up. Yes, thank you. It's good to be honest. So we got 30, and I sent out the itemized lists for the past 3 years of what our expenses typically are. Does anyone have thoughts on keeping it at that amount or asking for more? Obviously, we're not going to ask for less. I know we don't have a lot of experience, so I'm not going to keep leaning on Jim, but is everyone okay with that number?
Do we go through that? Yeah.
Well, this year you're going to spend close to it for 2 reasons. Number one is the skate park pilot, which ended up costing like around $5,000-6,000 to implement. And number 2 is we had a major piece of playground equipment go kaput, and that was like a $3,000-4,000 replacement. So I would say that you should probably budget enough to cover operating expenses, which are going to be around, looking at past years, 15,000 or so. And then I would say you probably want an extra 5, in money. And then if you have any specific projects in mind that you would need more money for,
Picnic tables.
you should ask for that. But I'll say this, looking at the budget for next year, I'll say, if you don't have a specific request, it's going to be more difficult this time around to get funding from council than it was last year.
And when is that due? Is it?
If you guys need another month, especially given how new you are, I think I can swing that. Like ideally, this would be the deadline, to be honest with you. But given the circumstances, I think I can handle waiting another month.
But the suggestion is we need to have something concrete that we need to say, this is why we need the addition.
Yeah. And you don't need like a specific number. You don't need to be like, I've looked up 20 of these and they cost, $1,733 and whatever. Just if you're like, hey, I think we're going to need around, 3,000 for X or whatever, that would be fine. Or if you think we want whatever, then I'll go figure out.
Do we know anything about the condition of, say, the playground equipment, something that might need to be replaced, removed?
Great question. So the borough actually, right before I started working here last spring, a year of spring back now, I actually did do a playground inspection. I'll admit, given I was so new at the time, I did not closely review that document.
You're looking at too much. Don't worry about that.
If you all want to take a look at that document and give any thoughts on that, I'm happy to send that around.
Okay, thanks. And do the bathrooms fit under this? Do we some additional upgrades there?
Well, the lighting just died, so we had to replace do a bunch of electrical work over the bathrooms. I guess my one thought I will say is I'm very I definitely think the park needs investment, but I'm very reluctant to make that investment until we have master park management.
Correct. So any emergency items that that are going to break in the next 12 months.
I have to direct this question to Samantha. The field condition itself, is that something that the Parks and Rec should look at? That's something that's going to fall under the borough municipal workers, because I think we do know that the field is in dire need of aeration and everything else. I was going to say, and part of it's because of our use, but the question is, and really why I say that now is, if we want to do something, the time we're doing is rapidly coming when all these sports end in November, and that dead time is between November and we could hold them off until April, and then let that whatever needs to be done be done.
Yeah, I would say whatever we need to do to continue the operations of the park as is, we should certainly do. And so, this committee made a request that, I don't know, I'll admit I'm ignorant about what that would actually entail or cost. But if this committee had a recommendation, I would not oppose that.
You don't want any aeration right now in the midst of football season. So you're talking a good football touch. So as soon as it's over, come November 30th or whatever, if that short window to try to get some aeration would be something that you.
I like the aeration and whatever else. The field needs, and I welcome everyone to walk on it, it needs a lot of TLC, and that's nothing that the municipal board have neglected, but obviously we had a summer without much rain. The ground got very hard, and much like many of our yards, all we've seen are weeds growing. And so and then on top of that, the field is not level, and there's other areas in there. And tonight we uncovered a mother rabbit with about 30 rabbits on the field.
Jim, do you know if the field was air, when the last time it was aerated?
I would defer to Jeff, and I believe the last time it was fully aerated was the fall before COVID occurred.
So 2019, fall 2019.
So Jim, by any chance off the top of your head, do you have any kind of round estimate number of what that costs to do? Or is it just, it's fine with Public Works to do?
Well, I was going to say, I would defer that question now to Jeff. But I remember when we used Farley Brothers, the cost that basically ran was basically, it ran from basically, you could do anything for 5,000 to almost, you could Cadillac it and make it, $25,000, and maybe he came to Green. I don't know what he did with that. I believe, I have to go back and look at the numbers. It was about $7,000.
So maybe what I can do, especially given Jeff's background, our Public Works manager has a very strong background in field and lawn maintenance. Maybe I can check with Jeff how much Public Works could do.
First rent a machine.
Or do they have an aeration machine?
You'd have to rent it.
So if the committee is fine with this, I would be fine with talking to Jeff and putting a budget request in for whatever it would take or cost to do field aeration.
The soccer cleats in the fall might count. That doesn't.
Whether it's aeration, there's other things that it does require some leveling and some, tender loving care.
Whatever, Jeff's probably, as you say,
Yeah.
the best person.
So that's why, I would go with.
And then I would just suggest to the committee anything you can think of between now and, any concrete proposals between now and the next meeting. I just let me know your next meeting that I can kind of finalize the budget.
So,
I have another question, it's coming, I'm sorry. Do we know where it was left off regarding the fencing that we did around the field that came down?
Yeah, so I had asked, so I talked to Melissa about that, and I want to make sure maybe wires saying across. So I think I had asked Melissa about getting a quote for it, and we got the quote, but it called for making all the poles really high, and it was really expensive. So I think I left it with asking Melissa, the director of NAA, about whether there were any alternative options and what sort of other outside contributions beyond the borough we might be able to get for the cost of doing that. So if you want, either me or Jeff can certainly follow up with Melissa about that, and that way we can see if there's something we need to work into the 2023 budget for it.
I think that's just to bring everyone up to speed with something I was discussing. 2 years ago, we basically, because we took some trees, etc., down by the little baseball field at the corner of Wynwood and Hartford Avenue, we found out more balls were leaving the park and hitting cameras. So we got a proposal to raise the netting down there, and more on the Hartford Avenue side, and then basically halfway down to the dugout side on the North Wynwood Road side. The North Wynwood Road side, the netting did not hold very well. And I was going to say, so the company, we went back to the company, and said, hey, listen, and they came and did, well, let's just say repairs that didn't hold, we like that. So so at that point there, that's still something that needs to be addressed, especially for those who sit in the stands. There's actually a giant rip, so the ball could very easily go in there and hit somebody where that is, and it's more than just putting zip ties on there now. You have to have, and so I think that's something that's worthwhile pursuing, as well as any other projects that other members of the board believe need to be addressed.
Okay.
And that's an example of project to circle back to earlier conversation that the NAA contributed a significant amount of money towards.
I'm just wondering if it would be helpful to have a conversation with Jeff and maybe the other park users to see if there's any budget considerations that we should be thinking about before we make a recommendation.
Great idea. Yeah. So
the NAA, St. Margaret's, it's nice, July committee. Flexible.
That's good, Agent. Yeah, I think we definitely do that.
great. And
You'll get us the inspection report.
Yeah, tomorrow I'll definitely, tomorrow, maybe not tomorrow, by the end of the week, I'll definitely send that out to the committee.
You mentioned something that failed. What was that?
I think it was, again, forgive me, I don't, with my age, I don't really hang out, I don't have kids, I don't really hang out on the playground ever. So I want to say it was like a bridge sort of toy.
Oh, yes. I can address that tonight, but that was the, when, on one of the slides, they had like a running bridge there. The problem was the links that were holding it, you could see they were falling. And so, straight when you're a kid, you're swinging, and it's like, oh, look, now I can see the ground. So that's what it needs to be repaired. I mean, for years, we were very fortunate that we actually had a certified playground inspector who lived in Marble, and Dick Wilkowski, who lived in Marble Park, who actually did an annual inspection of it and certified that yes, you can use this, and that's why those of us who lived here a very long time, myself, I was close. Some of the things that are no longer there, or say, the famous dish of death. I was going to say, and they used to call the spinning ice cream cone, which go as fast as you can, and hold as fast as you can, and wonder why kids fell off because they're holding on pulling the handles off. And some of the equipment was very, very old. So the foundation where it was laid in, the concrete never had air. So but that, I think it's Samantha has a more recent report, obviously, from a couple of years ago. We go from there, and obviously, that's probably something as a board we should like to make sure that we have someone we can consult on that on a regular basis, or there's somebody who can find who does that.
So
and Samantha had somebody.
Yeah, so I have good news on that. So tomorrow night, council is going to consider a change to our liability insurer. As Jim and Dennis, you all know from the skate park discussion, the borough currently has a workers' comp insurer and a separate liability insurer. The provider who does our workers' comp insurance, who has risk management people on staff, including a certified playground inspector, is also going to become our liability insurer starting tomorrow. So that's someone who will come annually and will inspect all the buildings, the playground, everything, and will issue a report to the borough. And you'll absolutely get a copy of that report every year.
that's good. Now, as far as next steps on the budget, so we need to find out the cost to repair that rip. We need to, and who would do that?
So me and Jeff will dialogue with Melissa about the baseball netting.
Okay.
And like I said, I'll talk to Jeff about the aeration.
Aeration.
And I'll ask Jeff as well any other general thoughts on the park. It might be a help to me if folks on Parks and Rec could, utilize any connections, any of the outside groups to see if there's any requests for the park for next year.
Yes, so the NAA St. Margaret's 4th of July base, the basketball league,
And keep in mind, just with 4th of July, that's now the Narber Business Association.
correct. And I'll reach out to them. And I'm meeting with Michelle next week to go over the application, and that's it. New business for October 12th, we'll table that, but
I don't think that's relevant now that
It's
you're
not.
doing the ad hoc committee.
correct. It's a resource that, it's a potential resource, but we don't need to discuss that now. So, covered everything we need to. Is there anything you guys have to add? No? Yeah. Then just make a motion to adjourn. You motion, I second. All right, meeting adjourns.
You do tentatively have to vote.
What?
You do tentatively have to vote.
Oh, everybody, aye, all in favor? Aye. Okay.
I'll say nay. How about that?
Yeah, you wanna say?